Welcome to the Alex Monk Podcast. Interesting, fun, educational. We talk about everything. Today on the show, I'm interviewing David Philp, lead singer of The Automatics, a genuine English punk rock band from the 1970s. They used to play at the Marquee Club in London and other clubs throughout the UK and Europe, alongside bands such as the Sex Pistols and The Damned. Their hit song, When the Tanks Roll Over Poland Again, released on Island Records in '78, was number 1 on the punk new wave charts. The Automatics also played gigs with Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers, toured England with the Vibrators, and played the Reading Festival in 1979. In 1980, David Philp moved to California, where he remained lead singer and songwriter of the Automatics. National Public Radio's Ira Glass conducted an interview with Philp on This American Life under Return to Childhood. Philp is featured in Act 2, Punk in a Gray Flannel Suit. And now he's being featured on the Alex Monk Podcast, which will be featured on punkrockblog.com. Let's get to it. So, David, I got you on the line. Thanks so much for agreeing to do this. This is an honor, this opportunity to interview you and learn more. And so first of all, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the early days and how it all got started. I don't want to spend too much time there, though, because I know you're working on new stuff, too, and I have a lot of other things I want to ask you.
I mean, I started out with the Boys in 1976, which was, and they were, probably the first English punk group. We didn't have the Vivienne Westwood look, but everything else was pretty much it. And they'd segued out of the Hollywood Brats, and we had a little studio up in Mornington Crescent, and that's where the Damned and the Pistols did their first demos.
Oh, wow.
And, and I wasn't with them for that long, but we went to Phonogram Studios, and where I met a young T-boy, second T-boy on the roster, and that was Steve Lillywhite, and we started recording.
Okay.
And so Steve and I kind of, came up together, and then he moved into my apartment in West Kensington, and that then became, over the next few years, that was, most of the bands came through there, particularly there were ones that Steve was doing, like, the Members, Eddie and the Hot Rods, Johnny Thunders, and so on.
Okay, so now your hit was When the Tanks Roll Over Poland Again, initially, and that was released on Island Records in '78, I understand. When were you actually writing and recording that? Was that in like '77, or how did that happen?
Probably about '77. I remember we were doing demos with Steve at Phonogram, and we had like a bunch of the other songs, and then I just came out with When the Tanks Roll Over Poland, and that kind of clinched it for the deal with Island Records. So we all went over. Steve went over to Island Records. Ultravox, who was one of his other bands, went over to Island Records, and it was kind of like a collective, a cooperative. I tape operated on a lot of the early Ultravox stuff, because in those days you had the producer in one room, and he'd signal the drop, and you'd be in another room, with a little window, and boom, you'd press record, and you just wanted to make damn sure you didn't do it wrong.
Yeah, editing was a lot more difficult in those days, I understand.
Yeah. Well, if you pressed too early, you were raised, and you couldn't just like now you can fix it all in Pro Tools, but it wasn't like that then.
Right.
You had to play the damn thing.
Yeah, get it right in one take. So I understand that the Automatics then went on to play gigs with Johnny Thunder and the Heartbreakers and toured throughout England with the Vibrators.
We toured with the Vibrators, which was kind of like I guess that was the winter of '78, and that was like because it was the first time that punk was going out into the provinces. It had been in London, but now we were going out to all these places, and there'd be all the kids didn't really know what to do. They knew it was different, but they didn't know in what ways it was different. So, and in those days, punk was much less defined. Elvis Costello was punk because punk and new wave, people weren't category obsessed in those days. If you had the attitude, it's like there's a guy who played kind of weird folk music called Wild Willie Barrett, and he was punk too. I mean, it was. Yeah. So anyway, we would go out to the provinces, and people would just fucking stop and look at you.
Like they didn't know what to think.
Yeah, and you walk down the street, and like kids would just start following you.
Wow.
It was really weird. And then when you got to the gig, it's like they'd been reading in the papers of what you did with your heroes was spit on them. So like you get to all these gigs, and there'd be all these kids spitting on you.
Oh, fuck, that's gross.
They can't get the drummer; he's at the back.
He's protected.
Yeah, all the other guys can back off, but the singer can't.
Oh,
so I mean, I got it. I come off stage some nights just coated in gob. It was really nasty.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, well,
it's just punk. It's just a part of it, right?
Yeah, it was just really weird, and it was very violent then. Very violent when you went out of even in London. Actually, a lot of because the Teddy Boys, they hated the punks, and so you'd be walking down the street.
What do you mean by Teds?
Well, Teds, England always is very tribal, and Teds were people who believed that the only good music was made between 1956 and 1958, and that rock and roll ended when Elvis went into the army. And, these guys didn't buy clothes. They inherited them from their dads, and if your drape coat was an inch too long, they'd kill you. If you had the wrong kind of shoes, they'd kill you. So by the time that the punks came along, they were incensed. So, like you walk down the street and, some Ted would go at you with a razor or a chain.
Wow. So these guys felt really threatened by this change. They weren't very tolerant of it.
Yeah. Well, the Automatics, we used to do this thing where we'd get a flatbed truck and we'd put a generator on it. And, and we'd drive around and play guerrilla gigs.
Cool.
So, like when Queen were playing Empire Pool Wembley, overnight we went round, we put our posters all over their posters. It said, tonight, Empire Pool Wembley, the Automatics, and then a very small writing at the bottom, special guest, Queen. so when everyone was coming out of the Queen concert, we rolled up in the parking lot on our flatbed truck playing When the Tanks Roll Over Poland again. And I think we managed to sort of squeak out 3 or 4 other songs before the cops arrived.
Wow, that's so punk. I love that.
But apparently Freddie had a shit fit about it, particularly after the Evening Standard, which is the London newspaper, particularly after the Evening Standard gave us the review and said how refreshing we were after all the.
Oh wow, yeah, he was pissed about that, huh? Wow, what a crazy story, man.
Yeah, Freddie could really get his knickers in a twist. And, I mean, just before then, I'd known Freddie because he was the shoe boy. He was selling shoes at Freddie de Havilland's at Kensington Market.
So you knew him, like, from around town?
Before Queen. Before Queen. He was just a shy little Malta boy. But, he broke out of his shell. Didn't he do well?
Yeah, he sure did make something of himself, for sure. He's inspired a lot of us. So, let's see. The early histories recounted in No More Heroes, a complete history of UK punk from 76 to 80. That's something I definitely want to check out. And I was looking everywhere online for that, and I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I've got a copy here somewhere. I think they sent me one. I've got like a collection of all the...
That must have been neat to get featured there.
Okay.
And then NPR Ira Glass conducted an interview.
Yeah, I did an interview with Ira after I went back and started doing the playing gigs again. I did tours of Japan, which actually were really fun, because
hear more about that. This was in the 2000s then, right?
2000. I kind of thought the whole thing had been forgotten, but the Japanese,
they remember.
They do, and the tour sold out, the shows sold out.
Wow, that's so cool.
It was like just incredible. Like when we used to play the Marquee. We had a residency at the Marquee in 78, every Saturday night. And, like those gigs were just amazing. The kids jumping up and down, so much energy that the steam would come off them and it had hit the ceiling, the low ceiling, and it had stuck cool. And then about halfway through the gig, it had started to rain.
Oh, wow.
And it was the same in Japan, like all these kids, from the first.
You're saying there's just so much steam coming off of everyone's body that the place got wet?
Because they were all in the mosh pit, So like everything gets wet.
Oh,
because everything's like raining. It was the same in like Kyoto, It was just
musty.
From the first downbeat, it was just this ignition of energy.
Wow.
Which was cool. Good.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah, that's what makes it exciting.
I've forgotten,
And that's what makes it exciting. The music starts and then the mosh pit just lights up and it's punk rock. You're there.
And that kind of just carries you through, I'd forgotten what that felt like. It was,
So that was inspiring, and so then in the 2000s you released 2 more albums. I see you released an album called 2 in 2002, and then another one called 40 Virgins in the Afterlife in 2004.
Yeah. Well, it was albums that I did with mostly with Jim Wirt. I think we had Ricky from the original Automatics. He came over and drummed. But mostly we had. Ian from Stiff Little Fingers, and I just basically, used mates. We had Jonesy from the Sex Pistols on a couple of the tracks actually.
Wow, cool.
And he's around here. Lives about half a mile away from me, I would say. And it's that was fun. And then I did Britannia in 2006.
Okay, Britannia in 2006, and you did that with Wirt, Crowder, and Kaufman. It looks like.
Yeah. Paul's been playing with me. Paul and Brian Kaufman have been playing with me for about 20 years now, and so we all know each other pretty well. But the recent band. With Timothy Andrew Edwards, he was the second guitarist, but we couldn't get a bass player that we liked.
Is that where Wirt
you
came
know.
in then, as a permanent member?
Wirt had been doing that, but then he moved to Cleveland to run a studio in Cleveland. Plus, he has a career he's a multi-platinum record producer.
Right, I understand he produced
Incubus,
yeah.
Hoobastank,
Fiona Apple, no doubt.
Yeah, he was doing a lot of that stuff. So, but Tim, we moved him from guitar to bass, and he's about the best fucking bass player I know, because he really gets behind what the drummer's doing with his foot.
Badass.
Which is kind of important.
Yeah.
And then we got Chaz, who just from the Young Dubliners, and he's great because he brings the high harmony, and so all of a sudden, the band had been fun and it was good and everything, but in the last 6 months, I'd say it's become kind of like, it feels special to me, and I think to other people. We've been out playing, I know that I can't keep these guys unless I gig. So I've been getting out of the studio and getting up and doing it again, and it's fun. It's so much fun to play with those guys.
Good, man. So that's why you're still doing it, is because it's fun.
Yeah, and also that. For a while I ran a studio with Jim, a commercial studio in Koreatown, and
in LA.
Yeah, and so I got to see a lot of the young bands, and the young bands are good at some of the things that they do, but they don't rock, like that, because they know that they can always fix it. They can, quantize the drums and cut them, and it's all going to sound great, and they can put down the guitar in perfect chord and then just cut and paste, and and I watch them do all that, and then at the end of the day it sounds near perfect, but it's not exciting.
It's not very human. The
So
flaws
now,
of the music is kind of part of the good stuff.
Well, now we've gone off the grid. Lily White, who we're still pals with, he said, your band should record old school in the studio.
Ooh.
Don't put the drummer on a
Hell
click.
Yeah, I like that idea.
So that's what we've been doing.
Really?
And it really does sit. Like, we're not doing it like anal retentive on tape or anything, but we're putting it down
live
as the band plays live. And it's so much more exciting doing it that way.
That's so cool, man. That is so cool. Yeah, you're keeping it alive then, in more than one sense.
Well, I never heard anyone say, "Oh, I don't like that record. It speeds up in the chorus." It's meant to speed up in the chorus.
Right. Yeah, it's natural. It's the energy. It's human. I wanted to ask you about the Britannia album. I understand that it's like about Englishness from an expatriate's point of view. That sounds like how is that meaningful to you? The theme of that album.
Well, I think it was at the point at which, every time I go back to England, I feel a little more American. I feel a little more out of touch with, all the kind of things that I grew up with. And Britannia was a way to try and put that, in perspective. So I took a bunch of quotes from eminent Victorians, and I just started from there and wrote songs about it, and I think we kind of caught something. I think we kind of caught something, and Mike Reed, who's like a celebrity DJ in England, he sort of pushed the record, and I went over and I played the Radio Road Show, going up all these seaport towns on the East Coast, largely sort of Victorian towns.
Yeah.
And one of the songs went to, two of the songs went on the chart. In the Big L Capital Radio chart, and one went to number one.
In 2006?
Yodeled briefly atop the pile for a couple of weeks.
Wow, that's exciting. And was that in 2007 or?
Yeah, right about then, 2007. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So
So as I listen to the Britannia album, I'll be keeping that in mind, and I'll be trying to understand that perspective. That sounds intriguing. Um, I did want to ask you also about what you're working on these days and like what your plans are for the future. Also, what are you excited about right now? I understand you're like at rehearsal right now, so you must be working on something.
well, yeah, no, I'm headed out there in about now. But yeah, what I'm doing is I've kind of rediscovered playing live. We've been going out, we've been doing it, and what's been happening is we've been making like a lot of friends, some of whom are quite connected in the industry, but so that's been pushing us forward more. We've been playing the Canyon Club and we've got some other dates lined up. But it just is really fun to do that. And now since Japan, basically, I've been sitting in my own studio, working out, the hard way, what's important to me. And
Ooh.
this is kind of regressing to just going in a studio and recording the band. When the band plays as well as these guys do, you just got to try and catch that lightning in the bottle.
So that's what's important to you is capturing that moment when the music comes out of the band and it just happens, like getting capturing a live moment.
Yeah, and it's been great to work on the grid. It's been great to learn about how to deal with that, and I've had a great time doing it. But there's something very special about capturing a really good band.
Yes. Absolutely.
At the top of their game, and so that's kind of brought me back out to doing it again, and the fun of doing it again. Because for a long time I didn't particularly want to be buggered because particularly in England and Germany and and to Canada, it's all the same guys who were there in 1977, but there's a whole lot more of them, and they've got a whole lot less hair.
Wow, that is cool.
But now after Japan, I kind of realised that there's a whole new generation of kids that sort of really care about the music from 1976 to 1979.
Yeah, definitely.
And that they iconography that music. Like you go into a record store in Tokyo, and it's like the records are up there. It's like religious iconography. They're illuminated. The actual record is filed away behind the desk, so people can't steal them. They're just copies of the sleeve there, and when you pay, you get the actual thing.
Uh-huh.
But and those kids know more about it than I do. In some cases.
Yeah, because they're absolute fanatics, and it's so inspiring. So it becomes a great source of inspiration and obsession.
Yeah, and also, like the stuff with Johnny Thunders. I mean, Johnny played on the first Automatics record, and I played on his solo record. But they dumped that track off the original release, and then nobody could remember who did what, so I never got credited. And then just recently, a record label in England called me up, and we went over it, and I put him in touch with Steve, who produced it, and apparently there are like 20 outtakes or something from the Johnny record, and before Johnny died, he said it was the best thing he ever did. So, now they're re-releasing. I'm getting credited. They're sending me copies. It's nice,
Cool, yeah, man. So, what I wanted to ask you about the creative process, what that's like for you, because I know it's different for every artist. How does a song come to you, man? Like, do you start strumming your guitar, and does it come from the inside of your head, or is it outside, what you're hearing out on the outside, or do you write the song first or the music first? Like,
No, well, they all come in different ways. But, I kind of feel like when I'm doing it, I'm just kind of doing it. And then, when I go back over it, I remember it slightly differently. And the parts begin to shift together and work together. I think I'm writing better now than I ever have done,
uh-huh.
And each one's kind of like a mystery, but it's also kind of like a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
If you got this, then now it's time to do that.
This piece over here kind of gives you an indication of what that piece might look like and how it all fits together.
I got a very good piece of advice from Lionel Bart,
Ooh, what's that?
who wrote Oliver. And Lionel, he couldn't even play an instrument. He wrote all those fucking songs. He couldn't play an instrument.
Wow.
He'd bang it out on his desk.
Huh.
Consider yourself, mate.
Uh-huh.
Consider yourself part of the family. And the ability to do that strips a song down to
its melody,
its basic
right?
component parts.
Yeah.
And what he told me was this. He said a good song goes more or less how you expect it to go.
Huh.
Except for certain important exceptions. And you've got to supply those important exceptions. And I really kind of got that because, you want to lead the listener along. It wants to be a pleasant experience. It wants to feel fairly comfortable. But then you got to hit them.
Yeah.
You got to left foot them. You got to left foot them, and that's your hook.
Keep it interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
So it's like a balance of what's sort of natural to us all and expected and familiar, but then balanced out with these elements of surprise.
Yeah,
gosh,
absolutely.
I really get that, man. Thanks for sharing that. That's really cool.
Well, I always thought that was a great piece of advice from Lionel, and I'm happy to pass it on to because songs are kind of important. I don't know why they're important, but for some reason they sort of get in our psyche and they shape our thinking. Mm-hmm. And our philosophy and our belief system. And I don't think anything else quite gets into the subconscious like that. And sometimes, I remember sometimes I'd come back from the studio and, it'd be late, much later than I normally go to bed, and I'd go out into the garden and the nightingales would be singing, and you could whistle with them, and they'd repeat it.
Ooh.
The mockingbirds, not
okay.
not the nightingales, the mockingbirds, and so you do something, and they'd do it, and I realised how natural song is.
Oh, wow.
To all.
Living creatures. Yeah, if birds are doing it, then it's something embedded deep in us as living organisms. Melody and tone and just auditory, the experience of it is, it's embedded in us as living organisms.
When I got back from Japan was kind of like, because I hadn't done it for 30 years, and I came back, and it'd been like this tumultuous experience where, I'm trying to work out, what's important to me, and to discover that there's a new generation of kids who all think you're great. But I got back, I was horribly jet lagged, because the jet lag from Japan is a complete bitch.
Yeah.
and I came and I got back home, and I went onto my balcony off my bedroom, and all around the canyon, there was like a bunch of birds that were just migrating. There were just like tens of thousands of them, and they were just stopping there for the night on their way south, I guess, or north, or whatever the fuck it was they were going. But the whole place was just full of birds singing.
Whoa.
And it felt like such a surreal experience to me that you know, and I don't know what I got, but I got it.
Huh.
You know,
it was inspired you in some way.
Yeah, and it's never happened again. It's never happened. It never. You know, I've never. You know, they never stopped in this canyon again.
It's one of those live performances that you captured with your ears, and you were there for it. That's cool.
Well, you know, when I used to do radio, when I was doing Britannia, you know, they had me go around and do radio spots all over America. I have difficulty in America. You know, the automatics were very early. You know, and we broke up before America really woke up to the English punk thing.
Oh, okay. You're ahead of your time.
Well, the Japanese credit me with being the founder of punk pop, which is kind of interesting. And I thought about it, you know, and I thought, well, yeah, maybe I am. But they said, you know, you draw a straight line from Green Day, and it goes straight back to the automatics.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, yeah, okay, I'm good with that.
Yeah,
but
I'll take that.
yeah, we'll take whatever accolades we can lay our hands on at this point.
Yeah, that's.
So I lost my train of thought. I can't remember what the fuck I was talking about before that. Oh.
Well, you were talking about Britannia. You were talking about.
Oh yeah. So they'd have me do all these radio shows, and at that time I was writing a lot of songs. So every once in a while, you know, they'd want you to do a live song.
Okay.
A couple of live songs. And I'd sit down with the guitar. You know, you fly into a thing. There'd be a link of different towns, and you know, you'd stop off in each of the radio spots and play 2 or 3 songs, do an interview. And,
right.
But so I started doing song sacrifices, where, you know,
what's that?
I'd written a song, and I said, you know, and I play it one time on the radio, and I'll never play it again.
Oh my God, that is so cool. And I understand your value now of capturing a live performance. And what you did there is you let it have its moment. And now if you want to hear it, you've got to listen to that recording of it. That's cool.
Well, I'm not even sure that they kept recordings of them. The point for me was that it was a sacrifice to the gods of song.
Wow. That's deep, dude. That's deep. That's cool.
Yeah, I get pretty wacky. But
I can appreciate that, though. That's meaningful. That's neat.
Well, you know, and I did a couple of those. You know, I did songs, and I ripped the page out of my notebook, ripped it up, never recorded it, never played it again.
Where do you think you picked up those sorts of values? Is it really just from your experience with live music? Like, because that sounds so esoteric and like something that a lot of people might not even understand, you know, sacrificing a song, never playing it again.
It's the Viking blood, you know. It's the pagan thing, you know. I'm not, you know, wandering around barking at trees or anything, but you know, I do believe that, you know, that the whole, you know, the way the Western world has, you know, has been run under the Saint Augustine, you know, thing is just, you know, too damn much. I like the old gods.
The old gods.
Know, they're much more understandable and human.
Viking, pagan gods. This is okay. So now I'm understanding this is an influence of yours as well.
Yeah, I think so. You know, I've always been interested, you know, in history, particularly, you know, the Dark Ages, when. You know, of English history, when between the 4th century, when Tacitus stopped writing for the Romans, and the 9th century, before the Reverend Bede started writing the Christian journals. So there was that sort of 5 centuries that, nobody really knows very much about.
Yeah,
but we're finding out more about it now. But it was that period when the whole the Saxons and the Celts and the Vikings all sort of came together, and the kingdoms of England dissolved into a Greater Britain.
So I understand now. You find inspiration in learning about this stuff, and this is where some of those values come from. I've
never really been much for the standard values.
Yeah, that's kind of what punk rock is about.
I want to question everything. I want to question everything. I want to
totally.
Yeah, but very often you find out the hard way. I mean, I never took a music lesson in my life. I had to invent my own musical world.
Wow.
So and for a long time I was very intimidated by people who really, really knew what the hell they were doing.
Yeah, I understand that.
But now I'm not so much anymore.
Right.
Because I've had some of those guys like I've been working with Tom Morse, and he's like one of the greatest string arrangers. He also just wrote Schindler, which is being staged by the German National Opera. It's like gazillions of dollars sunk into that.
Oh wow!
that thing, and then next year it's off to Moscow for it's modern music, modern classical music, and all written by Tom. And Tom did orchestrations for me for a few years, and Tom was really sweet and generous with me, and he said, don't ever be put off by people who know, who've got PhDs in music, because what you do is something else. And I really kind of got it. And
it's just something else is all it is.
Yeah. And some of particularly the guys, like the band's so good, I've stopped playing guitar because I just fuck it up. I'm not good enough to play with those guys, but I can sing with those guys, which is actually all I really did in the earliest incarnations of the Boys or the Automatics. So I've laid down the guitar for the most part, and
interesting. Yes. Yeah. Cool. So I was just about to ask you what kind of gear you play, but it sounds like you're sticking more to vocalizing these days.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been interested in the Rickenbacker 12-string, and that sound, and I bring that in, and I like, the car amps. Brian uses a lot of carving gear.
Yeah.
Great. And I've got quite a lot of guitars now. I mean, I never had more than one guitar, or maybe a second one, because it was the only way I could hold on to money in the old days, was have a guitar that I could sell.
Oh, I see. So back in the day, you always only ever had just one guitar, but now you can. And is that true now today? Do you still just keep?
No.
You have a collection
now I've probably got about 12 or something, but they're all good ones, and
keepers.
I've got some pretty nice ones, but I'm what I do mostly now is I put a 7th string on them, and it's a customization that a friend of mine, Fred Wallachy, did for the Byrds, and you just put the 7th string, the high 7th string, like a 12 string, on the G, and it just gives you a twang that you wouldn't otherwise. It's what you really want from the 12 string, and it's most of what you really hear from a 12 string. So
a little bit of natural chorus in there.
Yeah, if you listen to the acoustic guitars on, say, Britannia,
okay,
you may be able to hear that 7th string, but it really fattens the sound.
I'll listen for it.
Yeah.
Neat. Thanks for sharing that. That's just the kind of thing I wanted to know about, because now I get to go back and listen for that. That's a cool little, neat little piece of gold right there. Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you one other, because we got going about the guerrilla gigs.
Okay.
And we got as far as Freddie getting his knickers in a twist, but the worst one was during the height of the punk Ted wars, when
the punk Ted wars.
when the King's Road on Saturday was just like fights, just Teds wandering up and down,
really?
Carrying
just
chains,
policing the place from punks.
Yeah. Well, we fired up the Elf hot flatbed truck with the generator, and midday we went down the King's Road.
Oh my God!
Playing, our set, and we were moving, so that was good, and the punks were all really, really into it. But then, 3/4 of the way through, right coming into Sloane Square, all the traffic was backed up, and we got stuck right outside the worst Ted pub in the world. So it's a bit like,
so your life is on the line, basically, at this point.
I thought life was about to end, and it probably very nearly did. But it was like poking a beehive and then not being able to run.
Right.
So it's like we're playing, and then all of a sudden the truck stops, and this wave of Teds come racing out of the pub, carrying,
I'm dead.
Like chairs and everything. And at that point, we can't play anymore. We're just fighting them off. They're like crawling over the front of the truck, up the side of the truck. Ricky completely freaked out. Wally got his finger broken punching one of the guys, and just when it looked like we were going down for the last time, we got like a clear run down to Sloane Square. And
the truck was able to move again, or you guys just ran on foot?
No. The traffic cleared, and also a bunch of cars got out of the way. They were pulled out on the side because it was a riot.
Yeah.
And I remember looking back when we hit Sloane Square, and seeing all these cars pulled over to the left and to the right, and down the middle of the street, just this army of Teds waving bats, bar stools, bottles,
and stay out.
And then when we got to the end, there was like, we had to go all the way round Sloane Square, but they didn't. They just had to cut through diagonally.
They could catch you again.
So
meet you right there.
So by that time we think we're home and dry, and then all of a sudden we're not again.
A gang of them shows up again.
Well, because then we had to go all the 3 ways round the square, and they only had to go 1. So we just made it. And
close
I think
call.
I think we played the marquee that night with Wally with like 3 fingers and 1 finger in a splint.
He's playing his guitar with broken fingers.
Broken, yeah, and some.
That's punk rock, man.
Some fairly serious painkiller as well. So, but yeah.
Well, so there you go. Music does matter, and it can inspire people, and it can cause things to happen. I mean, dude, that was really punk rock of you guys, though. Just getting up on the back of the truck and riding right into confrontation, just riding right into the middle of it.
Yeah, it was. I mean, looking back at it now, you think, how incredibly stupid.
Yeah.
Did you want to die?
Yeah.
What
was I thinking?
Yeah, what was I thinking? I wouldn't do it again.
Right.
But it was.
Makes for a good memory.
It was it was kind of war.
War?
Well, I think punk rock and all that sort of that violence that came around from its inception, its birth, was kind of like our war.
Yeah.
I mean, our parents' generation had fought.
You guys were kind of on a front line, so to speak. You were fighting for your own freedom and your own self-expression, your right to express yourself.
Which is why I think a lot of the sort of paramilitary, you find bits of uniform showing up, in, like a lot of the punk bands, they were wearing sort of, Nazi medals and things like that. I don't think there was anything to do with sympathy for the Nazis or racism or anything like that. It was just, the desire to offend.
Yeah. It was a defensive thing, but it's an offensive thing at the same time. And this is something I've been thinking a lot about, and what punk rock means to me, and why it's important to me. And I understand that. I get it. It's self-expression and defense and offense at the same time.
Well, also, I think the thing about punk rock, because the whole idea of punk was designed at one time it was about philosophy, it was about fashion, it was about music and so many other things. It came out of a movement that was in the streets of London. And really now we only remember perhaps the music and the fashion.
Yeah.
But it was so much more, which is why it's so offensive.
Because it's a voice.
To me.
It's a voice.
It was about embracing the counterintuitive.
Yeah.
It was about, if something offends, let's investigate.
Uh-huh.
I remember playing with Johnny one night, he decided to go on blackface, and they burnt corks. It was the worst bloody blackface you've ever seen, but they went on and they did it. And, Johnny and Jerry and all those guys, they were fun, and boy, they were a good band.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I remember Lily White and I went to go see them when they first arrived, before Johnny found out where the dope dealers were. And all the English bands, we were all loosey goosey. We were making it up as we went along. These guys had been playing, in clubs for a couple of years, going up and down New York, and they were tight. And that was a real revelation to me. How hard they rocked. And so I always kind of looked up to Johnny, and he liked us. He'd come down and see us at the sound check at the Marquee Club.
Oh, wow, that is so
played
cool.
with us.
God, it's neat to hear these stories, man.
Oh, yeah. And then he'd come round to my apartment, and first thing he'd do was, put on Some Girls.
Uh-huh.
There was a big part of Johnny that just wanted to be Keith. and then go into the bedroom and bash out songs on the acoustic guitar. But I gave him a copy of my copy of the Shangri-Las,
Uh-huh.
and a couple of those songs showed up on the Johnny Solos thing. So he was, I think, also because it was produced by Shadow Morton and the Dolls had done some stuff together. But
okay, so David, you have perspective like very few people have the opportunity to have seen what you've seen, and to have your perspective on punk and the whole culture and the world of punk and the world itself. But so what I'd like to ask you is, with that perspective, what would you like to see happen in the world, and what would you like to communicate to us, the world, about, just like about what from your perspective, what you've observed with punk and its social context, and what would you like to see punk rock say to the world, and what effect would you like to see happen in the world?
That's a huge question. And my guess is that punk rock's probably said as much as it's going to say, but it will be reinterpreted, by probably each generation in a way. But but I do think it's about embracing the counterintuitive and exploring the things that offend and confuse.
Investigate.
And which is why, in a way, you take a picture of Sid Vicious and you show it to anybody around the world, they go, "Oh, punk rock." No, not fucking punk rock. Sid. The whole thing of Sid being punk rock is such bullshit. The kid couldn't play. The kid couldn't do.
So what was it?
But he did look great.
Uh-huh.
But it wasn't just about style. It shouldn't just be.
Yeah, it's not just a fashion statement.
Style. I remember, we being with Johnny, and he'd say, we're going down this speakeasy, and then he'd whisper, say, "But don't tell Sid." And we'd turn up at the speakeasy, and there would be Sid. And you just couldn't lose him. But
it was, you're saying it was, punk is more than a fashion statement. It's flying in the face of it's really, well, it's rebellion.
It's rebellion, and it's having the courage to embrace the things that scare you.
The courage
the things that scare you make you want to run in the opposite direction.
Right.
But instead of running in the opposite direction, if you go towards it, something interesting happens.
Ooh.
And I think that's what punk rock's about. If you add the feeling and the balls and the energy of youth to that magical equation, something magical happens. And that's the point of ignition that I spoke about. When we went back out and we played Japan again. Just that point of ignition where
punk,
everything.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. That and that to me is punk. None of those punk bands stuck around for very long. We don't really know how they would have progressed.
Uh-huh.
But most of the ones that are still around are basically playing exactly what they played in 1978 because they're getting paid to do that. But I've never wanted to do that.
Uh-huh.
And but I do think that what the Automatics are doing now is is the best stuff we've ever done, and I hope that people book us and listen to us.
Yeah, and they'll see that and they'll appreciate that too. Yeah, because what you're doing now, when you say what we're doing now, are you talking about playing like Britannia? And
No. I
totally
kind of
new
moved
stuff,
on from
right?
Britannia too. What I'm doing now
Totally new
is we end up doing, I think, about 4 or 5 songs from the first record because it's just fun to play it.
Oh, hell yeah!
And and I think we end up with Tanks and Moth Into the Flame.
Okay.
And which actually just got in Kill the Irishman. There's 3 minutes in the middle of that movie where the Irish mafia and the Italian mafia just go to war and they just blow shit up for 3 minutes whilst
that's
they
the
play.
song they chose.
Whilst they play "Moth Into the Flame" by the Automatics.
That's freaking rad. That's so cool.
So, I couldn't have wished for a better video.
Yeah.
But
awesome. I'll be watching for that too then.
Yeah, but it also like the new songs, have been a bit like, going back to the Blarney Stone, and I think I've kind of, by going back and recording live and doing that, I think I've really come back to, that kind of 1978 form. So the whole set is very rocking, very fast, and the band is, special.
Man, I really want to see it. Next time I'm in LA, I'm definitely gonna look you up and see where you're at.
Come on down.
Yeah,
and we're on Facebook and Instagram. You'll get all and Twitter and God knows what else, and you get all the information from Admiral.
Sure, yeah, and if you're listening to this right now, go look him up and hit subscribe and like all that, so you can follow David and his new material and everything, of course. Hey, man, oh, gosh, I can't believe that we actually just had this conversation, this interview. This is like mind-blowing for me. I'm so grateful. Thank you very much, David. Huge.
Alex, you're very welcome. And I'm always, for some reason, I believe it was kind of like an important time, and I'm happy to talk about it.
Yeah, it is important. It's important to a lot of us, and you were there, man. You were front and center stage, getting spit on,
all right,
covered in spit and lots of cool memories. So
God knows what else.
Thanks for sharing it all with us, man. You're an inspiration to us, man. Keep rocking. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alex. Take care.
Rock on. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Alex Monk Podcast. Be sure to subscribe at alexmonkpodcast.com.